Peterson. Most of you already know me, but I see some faces that I don't know here, so that's really exciting. And I am delighted to welcome you to Writers in Conversation with Victoria Buitron, okay, and Julie Sarkissian.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, good. Victoria is a writer who hails from Ecuador and resides in Connecticut. She received an MFA in creative writing from Fairfield University. Her debut memoir in essays, A Body Across Two Hemispheres, was the 2021 Fairfield Book Prize winner. In 2023, she received the Artistic Excellence Award from the Connecticut Office of the Arts. She has been series editor for the Connecticut Literary Anthology since 2023. Craig Garden, okay. Tin House, Grub Street, Sundress Publications, Bona, and more organizations have championed her work through grants or writing residencies. Right there, because you're amazing. Yes. Thank you. Her debut poetry collection, Unburying the Bones, is 2025's Verso Frontera inaugural prize winner and will be published, has been published, there it is, by Texas Review Press. It's a beautiful book. Julie Sarkissian is the author of Dear Lucy, published by Simon & Schuster, and nominated for the Dylan Thomas Prize. Oh, no way, man. Up here. You know I love you. Her essays, short fiction, and book reviews have appeared in the New York Times, Tin House, the Huffington Post, the New York Observer, and Flavor Wire, among others. Born and raised in Southern California, she has a BA in English from Princeton and an MFA from the New School. She's an instructor at the Westport Writers Workshop, where she teaches fiction and memoir. So if you like what she says here, you can find her there after and take a course with her. Through the workshop's outreach program, she has taught at organizations that support under-resourced populations, such as STAR, the Caroline House, and the Malta House. She is also the co-organizer of the Westport Writers Workshop Pitch and Publish Conference. All right, so no phones, right? All right, so each writer is going to read for about 15 minutes. I'll let them flip for who would like to go first. And then I've got a bunch of questions for them, and then we're going to open it up for your questions. So write them down as we go along so that you are ready to talk when you're ready.
Thank you, Victoria. What a crowd! What a community, Laurel. This is so cool. There's that Seinfeld episode about isn't it like the leather pants? Or was that an SNL skit where someone like buys these leather pants and they make this horrible squeaking sound? I hope mine aren't that loud.
I think that's, is it on?
Testing. How does it sound?
Okay, great.
Let's see. Oh, it's leaning over. I'm so short that the weight is getting messed up. All right, how's that?
Beautiful.
Okay. So this is something new. This is not from my published novel. I have many unpublished novels. So I love them just as much as I love my published novel. My agent has currently has a book on submission that we are rounding out 3 years of being on submission. I sent her something that was, I think it was in the bathroom of like a workout studio, but it was like, unless you vomit or pass out, never quit. So anyways, that's just a little something I want to emphasize for all of you writers out there, because I would say, I like to think I've learned a few things along the way in terms of craft or in terms of, the mechanics of writing. But I think what I've really learned in this journey of writing is how to persist. And I wouldn't trade that for all the publications in the world. So anyways, that's my preamble. So this is from something I recently started. I actually decided to challenge myself to do NaNoWriMo, which I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but it's a kind of this cool challenge. It stands for National Write a Novel in a Month. 50,000 words that you write over the course of 30 days, the month of November, which comes out to about 1,600 words a day. So this is something I've been working on this month. Okay. So not much of a preamble. It is a work in progress. All right. Ruby, you used to be so sweet, Dad said, after I did some rude thing like gag on my mom's food in an attempt to show how messed up my insides were without having to use any painful words like lonely, self-loathing, or despondent. You were born a lover, my mom said. You just wanted to kiss and cuddle and never be apart. You would catch our eyes and smile with pure joy. What's happened to you? I didn't know how to explain it. Something had been draining out of me for a while now, and I didn't know where the leak was. I didn't know how to plug it. I wasn't aware of it then, but there was still love inside of me, dormant, waiting like the seeds that can't grow until the river floods again. I'd learned as much from studying the seasons, but I didn't know it pertained to people too. The girls in the bathroom I swung punches at, the boys I had to outrun because I'd stolen the Cokes they left unattended, the pit bull I stabbed in the face with a broken beer bottle, they hadn't beaten the love out of me. They'd just beaten it down deep inside me, so it was harder to feel. There are many, many things that look 100% forever dead, and really, they're still alive, just waiting for the sun or the spring, or else their own private sun or their own private spring. The sun can come in many forms. Mine came on March 16th, 1992. I was 13 years old in Mrs. Williams' class, Mrs. Williams' 8th grade homeroom class. I was still trying and failing to be a good girl then, and I hated myself for being nice when I felt mean, and for looking malnourished, even though the doctor said I was fine, and for long ago overtures of friendship that were met with taunts that still echoed in my psyche like a bell that never stopped ringing. I hated that I had to sit with my leg underneath me to raise me up from my seat so I could be taller than I was, to see over the pretty heads of the stupid girls in my class. And most of all, on some unreachable level, I hated myself for thinking that I, a creature of God, needed to change to be worthy of love or belonging. That was blasphemy. Mostly, I was slow and quiet. My family life was also slow and quiet. My father and mother went to work in the mornings and came back in the evening, and we had quiet dinners in the kitchen. My mom would ask, "How was school?" And I would say, "Fine." It never occurred to me to tell the truth. Maybe it never occurred to her that I was lying, or maybe lying and saying everything was fine was the unspoken, agreed upon contract until the steam inside of me blew my top off and everything leaked out, creating hazardous conditions for everyone. But that was about to change. Things were not going to be fine for very much longer. Class, there's a new student. Kindly, ineffectual, Miss Williams said. "Say hello to Sean Hernandez." "You can call me Sonny," he said. I felt us all fall in love with him at the exact same moment. We would be heartbroken, all of us, we knew, all but maybe one. And never did I think for a second that I would be that one. I was quiet, unless I was wailing. I was sickly looking. My family were people who just got by and didn't ask for anything more. I would never ask for anything as large as this, but that didn't mean I would accept not having it. I would rather live a bitter life of unrequited love than not accepting Sonny Hernandez. He was wearing a huge striped shirt with horizontal line stripes and a collar, and a messy clump of friendship bracelets that lovesick girls had certainly made him, probably one for every girl in his entire town. He had warm, dark skin, at least for Minnesota. He wore his hair in the style of the day, long and parted in the middle. We used to call it a step. I don't know if anyone has heard that term. That was the hairstyle of the 1997 California Dream Boy. Okay, anyways, that's just an aside. No one knows that term. "Sonny," Mrs. Williams said, "welcome." "Sonny," we all breathed. "Who would like to volunteer to show Sonny around?" Miss Williams said. The anticipation was painful, thrilling, as slow as a roller coaster clicking up the track, the way you want that part to never end so you won't have to go down, and also you can't wait. I tried to will myself to life, tried to raise my hand, but as often was during those years, I was frozen, unable to act in my own self-interest, or act in any way at all. The leader of my tormentors, beautiful, freckle-nosed Jamie Fairley, raised her hand. I couldn't see her face, but I was certain it was a lie. It always was. She pretended to be nice when really she was twisted, and she pretended to be unfeeling when she got her shitty grades back, when really she must have felt like an idiot. There was probably something wrong with her mind, dyslexia maybe, because her grades were terrible, and yet outside of class, she seemed like an evil genius. But I didn't have any compassion for her. My daily prayer was that she would fail 8th grade and either have to repeat it or go to continuation school. The reality that even with her gone, I would still be myself hadn't occurred to me. Thank you, Jamie, Mrs. Mitchell said. My body was 98% hatred for Jamie Fairley. It lay like groundwater in me, nowhere to go, not yet. Then the teacher said, "Sonny, there's an empty desk behind Ruby." She pointed at it, or rather, behind me. He smiled a crooked smile, crooked because of a snaggletooth on the left side, and began to walk towards me. Really, it was not towards me, it was towards his seat, but my heart wasn't open to hearing any corrections. Then something amazing happened. As he passed my desk, JanSport slung over one shoulder, he reached out a finger and trailed it along my desk. It didn't matter if it was an accident, a nervous tic, a habitual sensory thing. He might as well have leaned down, tipped my face to his and kissed me. All the hope that I never had, all the sense that good things were possible that had dried up inside of me for whatever reason came flooding back, just for a minute. I looked up to meet his eyes, but he had passed. I heard him shuffle and settle in his seat, behind my seat. Let Jamie Fairley show him where the boys' bathroom was. He was sitting behind me in homeroom for the rest of the year. I would start praying hard that night. I was 13, basically just born, but this body would carry me through every age I would be until I died. I suddenly realized I wouldn't be 13 forever, that most likely I would not die this year or become frozen in time. It was a revelation. I felt all the future changes that my bones would make, all the ways I would stretch and grow and become. All that knowledge was contained in my bony knees. My legs I would go home and shave for the first time because I knew I could finally face my body. I had to. I had taken to showering in my underwear because of the hair between my legs, but not tonight, never again. Now life was much more exciting. Now not only did my days contain anger, jealousy, and sadness, but they were also filled with love. I thought about Sonny when I went to sleep, planning my outfit based on what it would look like from his vantage point behind me. I brushed the back of my head with special care. During homeroom, I struggled to breathe or think at all, and when the bell rang, marking the end of the period, I felt like a heroine torn from her lover's arms during wartime as he slung his backpack over his shoulder and sauntered on with his day, while I gasped to make up for the air I hadn't been getting. Things went on like this for a few weeks. My plan to make him love me hadn't been taking shape. This had seemed like a fait accompli when he had been instructed to take his seat behind me and ran a finger across my desk, but it seemed that fate had fallen asleep on the job. Instead of talking to him or even turning around to look at him, I scratched his name into my desk. Sonny, Sonny, I love you, I would scratch and not look at him, afraid of myself, afraid of having a vagina, afraid of my ears, afraid of wanting anything, afraid I might kill a butterfly by accident if it landed on my finger and I just went crazy and crushed it because I didn't really know what my fingers were for, afraid of the peaceful life my parents had made for us, which behind which was fragility and fear, and which was about to come crashing down on all of us. During lunch and recess, Sonny disappeared, doing the mysterious things desirable people did, like make out or smoke or loiter around mini-marts. So the only time I was ever near him, he was behind me. It turned out having your beloved sit behind you was the worst place for them to sit. I never even got to see his face. Something was about to change all that. Something bigger than me, something bigger than him, something the size of a 747. I was looking at a spider moving across the wall and trying not to want to kill it. Even as I was mad at God for ignoring my prayers to make Sunny love me, I was still trying to show God I was a lover of all of his creatures, a lover and worthy and ready for my great love. I had no idea God was listening. I had no idea he too believed I was ready. The door should have blown open by the force of my mother's anguish before she even touched it. But even then, my mom did not ask for more space than was necessary for her to barely move through the world. The windows did not shatter as they should have, and the walls didn't crack. The foundation didn't slip. I wasn't knocked to the floor. On the day we all died, she opened the door like any other day. "Oh, good, you're here. I have something to tell you." And then she sat down, and she looked so small in that chair, just a normal chair, but she no longer looked like a normal-sized woman. My mother was getting smaller and smaller, and now the kitchen cabinets were extending into the sky, and now the roof was gone. I couldn't see the edge where the wall met the ceilings. It was extending into the heavens, and so I couldn't look at Mom. I was just looking up, trying to see an end to our house that was no longer there. "Sweetie, sit down," she said, and I looked down at her, and now she had sunk into the ground. Her voice was coming from down in a hole, and it was saying Dad and plane and accident, but the words were getting fainter and fainter. "Mom," I thrust my hands into the shaft, trying to grab her. I was losing the thread of her voice. I was going to jump down after her. I was going to jump down into this hole, but the hole wouldn't open itself up for me. It had swallowed only her. And I was pounding on the hole, but somehow it was closed up. It looked open, but it wasn't. Mom was gone. All I could hear was my screaming, my slapping the ground with my hand where my mother had been, until I heard a snap. A short, clean, staccato sound, and pain shot through my wrist up to my brain. And there was Mom at my side, trying to pull me from the ground, and there was no hole, and the cabinets were there like always, attached to the wall, holding everyday vessels to support our daily lives, the cups and the bowls and the boxes of cereal and nuts. And I held my wrist to my chest, and my hand flopped away from me like it had lost its mind, like it didn't realize it didn't belong to me, that it was mine and I controlled it, because I no longer did. "I can't move my hand," I said to Mom. "What did you do? Why did you do that, Ruby? Why?" And then I remembered what she had told me, that Dad had been caught between the doors of the plane, where he's a mechanic at the airline, between the doors of the plane and the doors of the jet bridge. Dad had not made it inside the jet bridge before the plane started moving. And though he had tried to lunge out of the way in time, he had lunged out of the way just in time for his legs to be severed from his body. But he was alive. He was alive. Thank God he was alive. That is what my mother had been telling me while she was in the hole, while she was sitting at the kitchen table. But that isn't what I had heard. What I had heard was the devil laughing. From then on, seeing Sunny was the only thing that woke me in the morning. Otherwise, I would have just kept on not sleeping forever and ever. If I didn't have him, I would surely die. Rather, I would surely not die, never die, and that was worse. I had seen ugliness that would make bunnies freeze to death in an instant. I needed to compensate for it. I needed only the most beautiful thing in the entire world, and that was him. If I could get close to it, I could figure out why flies never swarmed around him, why his voice never cracked, why he smiled at the handicapped kids, and not just the sweet ones with Down syndrome, but the scary ones that punched themselves in the stomach and said, bad boy, over and over again. I would find out why he was so good. I would find out why he didn't want to hurt anyone when it would have been so easy for him to get away with it. Was it because he was actually ancient, like me, or was it because he was young and still unharmed? I had to know. I would then know the secret of goodness. just as I had come to know this, understand the secret of evil, then I would know which was stronger. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Julie.
Wow.
Hello. Okay, let's give it up for Julie again. That was amazing. I was so into that story. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? I was so
Yeah.
into it. Just also the huge shift at the end. It was amazing. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So this is my new book, Unburying the Bones. When I have to pitch it, the first thing that I say is that this book is about daily misogyny, but it's about so much else. It's about rebirth and divorce and finding yourself and just what it is for me as a woman to make my way into the world. So that's kind of what I'd like to say. It's very different from my memoir that was published a few years ago.
Can you guys hear her? Yeah?
Can you
Donna,
hear me?
Can you hear? Okay.
Yeah. I feel like, is it okay?
Yes.
All
They
right,
said
good.
yes.
Okay, awesome. So, I'm going to start out with this poem called An Etymology. I feed Jasmine to the alligator doe, and we swap nightmare stories to release the oxymoron. I ask if she knows the definition of herself, and she says she doesn't need to. On the walk back to my cabin, the hyena doe shows me her mock penis, and I reach in to stop her breech birth. Feel around for a snout, and blood purples my wrists, until the shrieks solve into whimpers. She does not say thank you, but licks my knuckles clean. Beyond the meadow is a panther doe. Belly sunned, tail twirls in the shape of candor. And before I pass, she defangs her pinky paw with incisors, gives it to me, the nerve ending still warm. How do you know it'll go back, I say. She says, silly doe human, and I thank her and leave. Sharp enough that before I'm home, I've slit my lobule, and there is no ache. Because as a baby, I learned to become a girl who would become a woman who refuses to feel pain. A honey badger doe waits on my porch next to the firewood, and she asks me how many men I killed today. And I say just one, but I helped bring a hyena earthside, so I'd say it's even. Thank you. When I was reading this, I've had a few people ask me what my inspiration was and what I was reading, and I honestly was not reading during that time, but I was visiting a lot of museums and a lot of places that had a lot of art and listening to a lot of music. So I wrote this poem after a painting that appears in the MoMA in New York City, and it's called Autorretrato con pelo corto by Frida Kahlo. Okay, and it's just entitled After Frida Kahlo. I don't know what I'd do if you cut your hair again. And I placed the autorretrato con pelo corto by my bedside, not knowing that the paint had made me flesh. And I never asked, but what would you do? Because there's dubious terror in the asking and silent rage in the response. In Ecuador, among rolling hills of Arrayan and Cuy, you told me I shouldn't have hair above my top lip, not just because I am a woman, but because I'm your esposa. And I complied the way Kahlo married Rivera a year after their divorce. And when I got back to our home, I called strangers to scorch lightning on my face, while a puddle of shrieks pooled into my gums. I opened our door, and through red skin said, look at how much I'll pain for you, because soy tu esposa. And if we make esposa plural, it becomes handcuffs, though I still don't know whose. And on the day you left, you could not ask why I had cut my hair. because I'd made sure to keep it roped long to choke my neck with. You could not ask why I had hair on my chin, because I'd made sure to pluck the seeds into our white rock garden. So instead you said you needed to leave because you don't do your hair anymore. Okay, this one is called, Has anyone asked the mama bear whether she prefers man or bear? In the woods one day, I stumble upon a bear, and she asked that I walk with her to find her lost cubs. And we look for missing marigolds, clawed trees, and the sweet smell of baby bear breath. And when I come upon a bush of rosary peas, she points out their black bloodshot would convince me that I have eyes on my palms before my bowels slay me. She tells me elder tales of being wary, fear of raw hide and bullets to make her fur into a souvenir. And she says we'll stop if she smells wet dog. Not because of the dog, but what that means is that a man is near. How do you do it, she asks. What? Live with men. Me, well, I pretend, I say as I scramble to a lookout. Pretend that they'll change, that if he's unsure a berry is poison, he won't feed it to me. Pretend quiet as tenderness and not punitive silence. Pretend predator and protector overlap. Then we hear a whimper. In a slim cave are Hopper and Jules, and when Mom licks them out, they say there were voices, haggard, grimy, inflamed accents. We nod, we look up, see the sun blaring, and an opposite slither of the moon doused in its heat. They lead me back to the trail. The babies lick my temple, and then they let me be. Okay, has anybody ever worked in retail?
Oh.
Okay, yeah. So I've worked in retail, I've also worked in customer service, and a long time ago, I was at a job, I was there for a long time, but right at the beginning, I was answering a lot of phone calls. And the very interesting thing is that after this call, as soon as I hung up, I said, I'm gonna write about this moment. And that rarely happens. I don't know if that happens to both of you, but that rarely happens where like a moment passes, and then in that instant, I'm like, I'm gonna write about this, like definitely. So
Hardly ever.
Rare,
it's
rare,
very,
yeah.
very rare, very rare. But I was like, make a mental note, and I don't think I wrote this until much after it happened, but I knew that I was going to write that. So this is called, Does the Devil Send Gifts? She asks me over the phone, and I think of Pandora's box, how it's always the woman's curiosity that wreaks havoc, not the maker of the box, but the one who releases it. For me, the fault lands on Zeus, always Zeus. And there was that time there were flies lingering on my plate the day of my grandfather's funeral. Nothing but devil scent, I thought. And of course, I never went back to that restaurant again. But have you seen the devil? At least in Bedazzled, God is a black man and the devil a white woman in stilettos, and I've never seen better representation than that, because they're sitting down for a game of chess, laughing while moving pawns and sipping espressos, and both are wearing white because in that scene would be too much, and I'm sure if we saw them, we wouldn't recognize them. And a gift that was definitely devil sent was a tape recorder I recorded myself saying bad words to when I was 12, and then couldn't delete, so off to the garbage it went. And yes, I still feel guilty 2 decades later, and I really want to ask this lady what type of gift she means. Maybe a colibri outside her window telling her she needs to pour salt over her shoulder for protection. A colibri means hummingbird, but in my other language, the word sounds so much better. And that is something the devil would say, I wonder? And if I want to ask her even more, like, do you think you'll know if it's a gift from the devil because he's been around a lot longer than we have? And how could you possibly tell? And I envision a gift on my porch, wrapped in blue velvet, and a tag that says, "To Victoria, from the devil," in 18th century penmanship. And I'd probably open it, thinking it's an ex-boyfriend trying to play a trick on me, to find that inside there's nothing but air, that the box itself is the gift. And I realize I'm still on the line. And if I say anything I want to say, this might be a 1-hour conversation. Or if I say the wrong thing, I'll get reported. And well, they don't pay me enough to answer questions about the devil. So I take a breath and say all that's expected of me. I don't know, but I'll pray for you. Okay, so this is the last poem for the evening. Just a heads up, this does deal with sexual assault, so if for some reason you want to walk away for the moment, if it's too much. But this was inspired by last year on the news. Gisèle Pelicot was on the news a lot. I don't know if you've heard about her. She's a French woman who found out something very devastating that her husband did. And I couldn't even watch the news because every time she'd pop up, I just start bawling my eyes out. So when something makes me feel that way, I know that I'm probably going to end up writing about it. So this was one of the last poems that I wrote for the collection, probably the last one. But I felt like I really needed to write about it and how I felt about it. So this is called Woman Takes Revenge. And I'm going to go like this. And that's just going to let you know that these are actual quotes from news stories and news sites. So that's clear, okay? Woman takes revenge. My favorite quote from high school is "Mi pluma lo mató," from an Ecuadorian politician about another politician. And I swipe right on profiles that say, "not political," because I can't speak with someone based on negation of reality, because yes, everything is political is a cliche because it's true. Because going to the courthouse and sharing in an elevator with a former abuser is political, because so is that it takes a woman an average of 7 times to leave intimate partner violence, and in the hours and the days after she leaves is when she is most capable of being murdered, because so is Giselle's choice, to have a public trial. Wife takes public revenge, says the headline. If a trial is revenge, what is justice? So is that the judge reminds her not to use the word rape, but sex scene, to protect the presumption of innocence, while recordings of the rapes were found in a folder labeled abuse. And it is merely September. Giselle will walk into court, sit in front of her alleged rapist, until December. Until now, French politicians have been mum. An exception is Sandrine Josso, a politician who says another politician drugged her last year to rape her. Allegedly, remember, allegedly. And more than 80 men, 49 on trial, 1 charged in absentia, and not one called the police, not one called her. Even an anonymous phone call could have saved my life. All men, even the ones who refuse to rape, remain silent. Giselle, my hero, no pen with which to slay, but may your voice annihilate. Thank you.
That's not right.
No, that's not right. All right. Now that I have put together
The library's materials. Okay, it works, so that's all we need.
Thank you so much. Let's give him another round of applause. All right, so I like your new work. My questions are going to relate to your novel.
Okay,
So-
yes, okay. I'll
hopefully, yes, thank you for
Okay.
allowing me to go
Absolutely.
rogue.
No, absolutely. Do you want to give us a brief synopsis of the novel so that they have some
Yeah,
context for my
sure.
questions?
So Dear Lucy is a novel about a girl with an unnamed condition, if you will. She's sort of what we might call now like neurodivergent, though I didn't even put as fine a point on that as I was writing it. She just had a voice sort of all her own. She certainly thought and behaved in ways that weren't expected and were sort of all her own. So that's the titular character, if you will. She gets dropped off by her mom, abandoned essentially on this mysterious farm owned by a couple referred to as Mr. and Mrs. And also on the farm is a pregnant teenager named Samantha, who's also there under sort of enshrouded in mystery, if you will. When Samantha has the baby and the baby goes missing, Lucy and her talking chicken Jennifer embark on a journey to reunite mother and child.
All right. Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So, in both of your work, there's kind of a surreal quality to them for me. And Julie, I think in your novel, it's partly the sense that we're only catching a fragment of what's going on from each of the voices. Victoria, in your work, that seems to come from the richness of the symbol and metaphor. Even that first poem you read, when I read it in the manuscript you sent me, I was like, okay, this is going to take me a few times through, right, to sort of figure out how you're using this language and why. Can you each talk about why you made the choice to present experience through those layered lenses?
I think that if you think about the title, just in general, Unburying the Bones, and then you think about digging something up and unburying something, there's going to be layers to that. And I really, really wanted to show that, to show the layers of what does it mean to go back into your past and analyze it? What does it mean to go back into your past relationships and analyze them as well? So I felt like I had to layer it with all these different types of scenarios as well, because there's a lot of the outside and nature within my poems, as I think that you could probably tell. And it's kind of like, how do I show misogyny through an encounter with a bear? How do I show, with the first poem that I read, an etymology, that was just me kind of being very angry and saying, you know, we talk about Jane Does, you know, women who are, you know, missing, who we don't know their names, who've been murdered. And I really wanted to take that word doe and just like flip it on its head. And how could I do that using animals? Because we always talk about does as in deer, or like baby doe eyes, you know? And I felt like that was a way that I could kind of get away with it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, so surreal. I liked what you said, Laurel. It's sort of interesting about feeling the text having a surreal quality because the whole picture only sort of comes together through multiple narrators, all of who, except for Lucy, she's the only one who's not obfuscating, right? So like Lucy is the only one who is forthcoming, but she's really limited in her ability to understand and in her ability to communicate. So when writing the novel, it was primarily from Lucy's point of view, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's just so hard for her to tell a story. Like, no one's gonna understand anything. Like, I don't even understand anything. So I created these other characters to sort of help. And they do, but they're all biased, and they're all telling a version of events. And so nothing like quite lines up. Like the corners don't quite line up. And then I would think, I really love figurative language. I mean, that's part of many reasons why I'm such a fan of Victoria's work. But I think even in what I read today about sort of the floor falling out, or you know these sort of hallucinations. I think that one amazing thing art does is sort of attempt and maybe succeed to varying degrees to describe sort of an experiential state that is so overwhelming to the senses that direct language can't really contain it. And with Lucy, the protagonist of the novel, who is limited in her ability to understand facts and to sort of like communicate basic reality, one thing that I think she is super aligned in is describing feeling states. And so that's sort of what she gets right, and part of why she gets that right is that her language is so unbridled. And she is not confined sort of by form or by expectation. So I think I think, you know, life is maybe surreal. I mean, there's so many of the big moments and the big things, whether good or bad, do have sort of like a surreal quality to them that I think is hard to communicate without sort of going out of bounds with language a little bit.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you. So you've got a room full of students here.
Hi, students.
And students and others often complain about this kind of complexity, especially to me, right? It's okay, you guys. I'm outing you, but it's okay.
How dare you?
What are the advantages to the reader of tackling this kind of writing? Where's the reward?
I have a couple thoughts. I'd say one reward is in nuance, which I suppose is obvious, but that things aren't black and white, things aren't, well, I mean, sure, some things are, but I think oftentimes what interests me sort of is the gray area, where sometimes the abuser is the beloved, sometimes you know, I have a lot of tropes in my writing that I come back to a lot. One of those tropes is like the abusive therapist, you know, the person who teaches and the person who empowers but also harms, and that they're really inextricable and that there aren't easy answers. And I think to go along, you know, with a character who is, I mean, this is sort of in the work in progress, so it's front of mind. It's certainly not the only, it's not the only sort of complexity, but one that's just easy, you know, to love somebody that hurts you. And maybe Victoria's work is sort of in my head a little bit about that. And not let the reader off the hook, not make it like where only bad people do bad things and only good people save you. Sometimes bad people save you, and sometimes good people do bad things. And I think when that isn't handled in a way where the language is sophisticated, it feels hokey and it doesn't feel true to life, and I don't think that it engenders sort of empathy and compassion. And yeah, so that's one thing that comes to mind as like a reaping a benefit of complexity.
That's a really hard question, Laurel. I love that.
Sorry.
No, I love that question. It's like sometimes you go to talks and it's like, what are you writing now? And then you get Laurel's question.
Yes.
And you're like, oh my gosh, okay. Honestly, I can think about so many things. Number one, I really do think that it helps your brain to analyze things. Like just, if I want to say it like in a very direct way, like it helps because life is complicated. And sometimes how you write about something can't be direct. It has to also be complicated. And I say that honestly because I remember sitting down in 2023 when I had this idea in my head of, I want to write this book. And the first thing that I asked myself, that I told myself was, I can't write this in prose. I said, I can't write a memoir like my first book. I was like, I can't write this in chapters. I can't write this in essay form. It feels so complicated for me to write about this part of my life and all of these thoughts that I have about being a woman in the world. I was like, I can't write it in paragraph form. And I specifically have very weird structures throughout my book because that was the only way that I could tackle my feelings. So I would say that, and also I would say in general as well, I do think that it's a form, another way that everyone benefits is it's a form of inspiration. I think that I've been inspired by a lot of writers who who believe in sometimes writing being genre-less. Like, let's stop thinking about poetry, let's stop thinking about writing in terms of fiction, poetry, and nonfiction, but how can we do away with that and just be like, this is writing, and it looks complex, it feels complex, but this is the only way that I can write about this topic.
So one of the current federal administration's ideas is that women should retreat from public space into the privacy of the body and family. And by all means, control that so that the public sphere doesn't have to deal with its messiness. How does writing about those areas, which you are both doing so beautifully, both push women back into those spaces, because that's what women should write about, and also open those spaces up to public view?
Julie was like, let me pass this.
Yeah.
Victoria. You know, I've tackled that question within myself as well, like a lot. Not as nuanced as Laura just put it in such an eloquent question. But I'll put it to you this way. A few weeks ago, I got an invitation to read, and it was at, it was in Spanish, and it was the first time that I'd been asked to read my work in Spanish and to talk about my work in Spanish. But I remember when they sent the description to me, they just wrote like feminine poetry. And that felt like, I kind of felt a little bit irked, because I was like, this isn't feminine poetry, this is just poetry, you know? And so I think that there's this like balance to it, because I want to write about these topics because I feel like they're very important to me. They were very important to me also at the, like when I was going through my divorce, for example. But also that's not kind of like all that I want to be known for as well. And like it shouldn't just be like, well, women are only gonna write about the misogyny that they face, you know? So there is a fine line, I think, between, you know, advocating for women can do like everything and they can, and then like women should only be like in the kitchen or at home and all that. And I think that what I try to do with my entire body of work is that there is choice. Like there is choice in the type of life that you want to live and the type of woman that you want to be. So I feel like that's the best way that I can articulate that and respond to that question. But I love that question because what is happening in the backdrop of our lives and the changes that are happening with this administration and the talks about having children, not having children, I think that those are facets of what I try to tackle, because what does it mean when society wants you to do something, but at the same time that society doesn't have a blueprint of being able to accomplish that without sacrificing who you are as a woman and what your goals are in general.
Yeah, such an interesting question. I'll get super like personal, not in like an interesting, sexy way, just like my personal experience rather than like a macro lens, which I sort of struggle to get my thoughts together as articulately as you two ladies on that front. So the way that writing, like my relationship with sort of like writing and the personal sphere, I would say, and as it pertains also with like motherhood as something sort of in between. Like motherhood is something that for me really threatened to take me from sort of like a life almost all outside the home. I was a waitress at the same restaurant for 10 years. I'd gone to this prestigious school and then got a MFA and then waitressed. So I was, out and about and not making any money, but living the dream. And then I had kids, and It felt absolutely preposterous to get a babysitter to go waitress. But so does that mean that I now have no time? My time doesn't. How do we add a value, a dollar amount to the time? And these were things. It wasn't. I mean, I was struggling with that. I didn't have answers for that. That was confusing to me. It wasn't some binary. My husband was like, "You stay home and watch the kid because your time isn't worth enough money." I was like, "This. I don't know what to do about this." What I would say is that I don't think there was anything besides writing and teaching writing and wanting to write that I cared about as much and maybe more in some ways than my kids. And so what it means about having no support for parents to find ways to be somehow compensated for as essentially as a worker. I mean, that's the dream. I don't know how to arrive at that. But what I would say was that I cared about writing so much that I fought for it like my life depended on it, and it probably did. But I don't know what I would have done if I loved it any less. I think I would have given up my career probably, maybe not happily, but with a lot, and I'm sure there would be ambivalence. But I think it was the only thing that I cared about enough to make me fight to live like in both spaces. And I just know so many people that didn't, and I don't think they should have done anything differently, but I see that their lives really shrunk into something that feels, I think, isolating, old-fashioned, maybe not what they thought they would do. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but I would say that I would say that it definitely kept me wanting to fight for to feel like my life was like a Venn diagram with me in the middle.
Great.
All right, super. Questions from the audience? What would you like to ask? Go for it.
This is, I think, probably just a good general question. Definitely not going to be as good as professors, but
Doesn't matter.
I'm wondering. I was going to think of it more broad, but I'll just say, how do you start it? Like one of your pieces of work, like you're obviously working on your piece right now. You have established pieces, maybe working on some stuff right now. But what is the order of operations for starting? Like, do you get an idea and start working on it, or do you say, oh, I kind of feel like making a piece, and then you kind of search for something? Like, what is the order of operations for like your creative process and starting? Just at least the start.
I think mine is like simple but confounding and really annoying, and I hate it. But it's just I have to have a voice. I think of myself as a stenographer from like the subconscious or the collective unconscious. Like I'm not really making stuff up, but then at some point I will start making stuff up and I will analyze and reflect, and that's when the work that's when I want to just chuck it, because I'm like, hey, I didn't want to do this. I was just taking notes. Like C.S. Lewis, I believe it was, I think it was either C.S. Lewis or Lewis Carroll, but he said, when the elves want to write, I write. If the elves want to write today, I'll write, and if they don't, I don't. So I will let myself out of getting a lot of work done by using that as an excuse, but I have to hear a lot, because the sad fact is I have no ideas. I've never had an idea in my entire life. The only ideas I get are about like what I want to buy on the internet. Those are my great ideas.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a great question. I would say that my first book was an obsession, and I got my BA in 2015. I actually transferred from Ecuador, from the University of Ecuador. I transferred my credits to Hunter College, and I graduated in 2015. And I was like, well, I need to get a big girl job now. And I got a big girl job, and 2 years passed. And those 2 years, I was like, I want to write a book about my life. And then like every day, I would be like, I want to write a book about my life. And then every day, I'd be like, well, when are you gonna write it? When are you going to write a book about your life? And I actually started taking workshops at the local library. Like, I started taking workshops. I've been, I think, to all the libraries in Fairfield County, and I've like taken workshops in different ones. So that was the idea for the first book, and then I applied for an MFA program, and the MFA program was 2 years, and my thesis was my book, so I had to write it. I kind of like had to set up this structure which forced me to write this book. And then this book, that was very different, but it was like, I have all these feelings and I don't know where to put them, and I need to put them somewhere. And now today, this year, I've actually written very, very little, because I got a new job earlier this year, and I applied to different jobs from, and this is like real life, right? Because everybody's like, oh my God, an author. And it's like, no, like most of the authors that you know, literally, they probably teach at a university, like 90% of the time, and the other 10% of the time, they have to write at that 10% of the time. So I got a new job. I applied from December to April of last year to April of this year. I applied to 75 jobs. So applying to a job is a job in itself, and I still had my day job. So I didn't have any time to write. I couldn't even think about writing. And then I got a new job, and I started in April. And it was my first new job after 10 years. And so I couldn't think about writing. And so over these last few months, now that I've been at my job for 6 months, I've gotten this like, ooh, I feel like I want to write about. Like, where is it? And there is a topic that I want to write about, and it was because I saw on the news that Giselle Pellicot's daughter no longer speaks to her. And she no longer speaks to her because she does not believe that her father did the same thing to her, like her husband. And it's like a very big thing, and it makes me think about me writing a book and calling her my hero. Like, how do I feel about that now? So that's been bothering me for like the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
And I'm getting obsessed with that. And so that means that now I'm obsessed, now I'm gonna write about it.
Yeah, the build up.
Yes, it's like,
Yes.
And that's why I also explained when I was reading earlier that it's very rare that a moment happens and you're like, I'm gonna write about this. But most of the time, for me, it's like this like little obsession that just keeps building and building and building until I can't ignore it anymore.
Great. Keep it. Who else? Yeah, go.
How would you go about publishing a novel?
I mean, I know, look, I've been trying to publish a second novel for a really long time, but, so on one hand, you know, take this with a grain of salt. On the other hand, you learn a lot through what doesn't work. But do you want me to just do like a 10-second rundown of like the route to traditional publishing? Okay, so if it was a novel, you would have the whole thing written, and as close to, I hate the word perfect, and I would only use it when talking about something that is completely like contrived and phony and you know what I mean. Like, that's not like a spiritual word to use, but taking it, that you have taken your book as far as you possibly could take it. You've had many beta readers, like you've had proofreaders, all of that. And then you will look for an agent. And so you'll query agents and you write them essentially a cover letter asking if they want to take a look at your book. You do a ton of research. You make sure you are reaching out to agents that are the strongest fit for you. You have your comps. You know, all of this information is like ready, available online. A wonderful resource is Publishers Marketplace. It's just an online platform that's used by the industry a lot. So it has like deal reports, which are basically a digest of every book that is being bought and sold and who bought it and who acquired it. That's a great place to find comps, quote unquote, because it has like a search function, so you can look for recently acquired titles that might appeal to readers. That
Doesn't know what comp is.
Oh, okay, so a comp, oh God. So at this publishing conference that we ran at the Westport Writers Workshop, one of the agents goes, I did not think this was a gracious answer, but when talking about query letters, which is basically your cover letter, it's your entree into, hey agent, do you want to represent me? Do you want to take me on as a client? Do you want to sell my book? You write them this letter, and he goes, the only thing that matters in your query letter are your comps. That means your comparable titles. What books have sold in the last few years that are like yours?
Okay.
And it's like that. Oh gosh, we could have a symposium on that. There's no way out of it. Don't try to wiggle out of it. Don't try to say no one has ever written anything like this before. That might be true, but it's just not going to help your case. The traditional publishing is getting more and more sort of formulaic and market-driven, and you kind of have to play their game. But so you would approach all these agents, and like, when I mean all these agents, I really mean all these agents. Like, she applied to 75 jobs, reach out to 75 agents. And then hopefully they will want to read your book and they'll love it and they will say, I'd like to take you on. Agents have, for the most part, become more and more editorial in the last 20 years. So they'll probably have comments for you, you know, can you make these changes? And then they'll say, it's time to go out on submission. Which is the horrid purgatory state that I've been living in for a really long time. And your agent will make a list of all the editors. So editors are actually who acquire for publishers. Like I used to think of editors as the ones only editing. All these jobs are being merged and condensed. So an editor will acquire and also hopefully edit, though oftentimes they don't edit anymore, and so your agent will approach all of these editors and say, hey, are you interested in considering this book? And then they'll send it to them, and then one of them will love it, and you know you'll meet your match. It's a laborious process. It's not for the faint of heart, but I actually totally recommend it. You just it's a great way to get a really thick skin, get super impervious, learn to work quickly, and look, with all the online resources these days, like you really can work quickly. You know, I mean, you used to probably have to hunt down these actual books that people had, you know, bought and sold and read it to even get a description or a feel for what it's like. And now that stuff is really at your fingertips. It's long and it you know, it's sort of the only way. The only way through is through. Is that the next question?
The only way through.
So that's the 30-second or 2-minute version of that.
Great, can't wait.
Oh, and it's not the only it's
No,
not the
so
only
there's
way
a
to
couple other
publish.
ways.
There's so many other ways to publish.
Yeah.
That is just like the sort of formulaic, straightforward, traditional route.
And that's also for novels. 'Cause
Yes.
if you want to publish a memoir or a poetry collection, it's completely different. And I'll stop there because it's a lot.
You have traditional publishers, and then you have independent publishers, and then you have self-publishing. So, independent publishers you often approach directly, rather than going through the middleman of the agent, which makes them more accessible, but also you're not gonna get the same publicity or coverage that you will with a traditional publisher. And no matter how you do it, you're still gonna have to hand sell your book.
Yes, that is, oh, completely. Oh, and there's hybrid publishing where you can pay a fee and get a lot of resources from a publisher, but they will also give you money on the back end, and then and then self-publishing, you're financially responsible for all of the publishing costs, but you make it all back. And have you heard of like an author called, I think, Tiffany McDaniel? She wrote a book called Betty. I don't know, it was like sensational book. This woman had no formal education. Like, I don't even know if she finished high school. She certainly hadn't gone to college. The book is gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. She had self-published like 6 books and then wrote, I don't know, this book, got an agent. So there's no right order to do it. I have friends who only self-publish and they love it, and they're like, if an agent knocked on my door, I tell them no. Like, they're very happy in that space. I could go on and on. There's lots to learn. There's lots of like tools out there to support you on any of these journeys, right? No matter what you choose.
Take heart. That's the key.
Stay at it.
That's right.
I
Somebody
think-
else.
Stay at it.
Other questions? Yes, go ahead.
I want to find out, as authors, do you have time to read other books? Do you enjoy reading? And
Such
do
a
you-
good question.
And do you have inspiration from those authors to write more books of poems?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I've always been an avid reader. Unless life is lifing, I'll be reading. But right now, life is lifing. So what I do, and I do consider it reading, is I just put on a book as I drive. to work, and so right now I'm listening to I Who Have Never Known Men.
Oh, I'm obsessed with that
Who Have
book.
Never Met Men.
Fall off my chair.
I'm like 2 hours until it's done, and I'm right at this very
it's so
important
good.
point.
Yes.
And this was a book translated from French, I believe, from a French author. And so that's what I'm listening to right now. And I just purchased a whole bunch of books when I was at a festival. So they're there. I love them. And I do get inspired. But when I'm writing my own things, I actually try not to read others' work because I don't want them to get inspired too much. So I'd rather just focus on visual or art when I'm really in the midst of writing a book.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna try to be briefer than I want to be. I love that book. I'm obsessed with that book, and I think there's a lot of cool thematic stuff with your work in that book. So yes, I read a lot, but I'm really disappointed in contemporary literary fiction, which is my genre and was what I used to read. So I feel like I'm this save the whale person, running around we have to save the whales, and everyone's like, yeah, we could, but we could also just read romancy and thrillers and this and that. So I have a fraught relationship with contemporary literary fiction. Everything else I'm pretty cool with. I think what's happened with memoir is amazing. I'm just wow, to young people, obscure people you've never heard of publishing these amazing memoirs. I love that. I've read so many self-published memoirs that Amazon, sorry, I know the evil A, Audible will just feed me, and they're totally self-published and they're brilliant and I love them. So I listen to a lot of those. I love true crime. I have found solace in translated work and in older work. There's another book, I believe it was translated from French as well, called Sweet Days of Discipline by Flor Jaggi. That's my other obsession. I gave it to my agent and then asked if she read it, and she said, Julie, I loved it so much I kept it in my purse so that if someone asked what I was reading, I wouldn't forget. But that's not well, they might have it at Barnes & Noble. I don't know what to say. I'm not going to be negative. I'm going to switch to something that is constructive. I like to listen to music when I'm writing, and I often will listen to one song over and over and over again for a couple hours. I actually listen to Wolf Parade. Let's see if I can get the song. I'll believe in anything while writing Dear Lucy, I think for 9 hours. So I swear if you put the cadence of her voice up against that song, they would be exactly the same. And I just discovered this artist, and I'm in love with her, Olivia something. Maybe I'm getting that wrong, I'll have to check. But she's this beautiful R&B singer that I'd never heard of. And I think the song is called Be Your Man, I don't know. Yes! Oh my gosh! So she has this song. It's so friggin' gorgeous. What do you say? The Man I Need? Yes! Oh my god, wait, so it's so wild, but that's all I'm listening to write this girl. I don't know why Ruby is has this soulful connection with the man I need. But it is. So if I can find the book to be reading while I'm writing, I will do it. But it's real tricky. It's really tricky. It can derail you in a lot of ways. Big picture, you just have to be reading as much as you possibly can. It's really the way to learn. Yeah.
You learn a lot about craft as well through reading other people's work.
All right, I'm going to cut it off there because the librarians want to go home at 8 o'clock, and I want to leave a little bit of time. Both of these fabulous writers have brought their books with them. They're back there. If you would like to purchase them, and they will sign them. Also, I have a book of poetry coming out in January, and it's on pre-order right now. And I've got cards back there if you want to pick one of those up and give any one of us a little hit. So.
And you have 11 books or something, right?
8.
Oh my
This will be
gosh!
8. Anyway, so
Just 8.
please, before you get up and leave, would you give them one more round of applause?
What a crowd!
Thank you for coming.